we're going to shift over to questions and answers. So just a reminder of folks on how to put question and answers in. That information is on the screen. So you can ask questions through Zoom or calling us, or folks that are in the room at DPW tonight, stand up and ask questions. This would be a great time to do that. I'm going to put and leave this information up on the screen as we go through questions and answers. This is, again, these are the best ways to get in touch with the project team. And there's multiple ways of doing so. So please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll respond in a timely manner for folks. So thank you for being patient with us and listening to me talk to you. And we would we'll love to take some questions now.
So the only thing we can do.
So Mike, as the host, would you be able to stop sharing and spotlight the panelists so you can have their video shown as we answer questions? You do that by right-clicking on the panelist's name. Oh, actually, we can see everybody who has their video.
See everybody now?
Yep.
Okay.
We do have some in-room questions.
Okay.
Let me just turn the lights on. Sorry about that. That's abrupt. That's a huge downside of this room. So you were first.
Do I normally do this?
Nope. This is actually the microphone. You can talk in the tiniest voice out in the hallway and they will still hear you.
Okay. I'm going to bring behind Majestic on Ledge Road. I want to know what's going to happen to the building, Majestic building.
So Laura, I could barely make that out. You may have to repeat the questions.
Yep. The question is, what is planned to happen to the Majestic building?
So the Majestic property, it will remain in place. We're going to be reconstruction and access from their parking lot into the roundabout. So they'll have direct access, safe access into the intersection. And then we'll be reconstructing their access along Ledge Road and repaving their parking lot.
Yep, we have had another in-room question.
Actually, I have two. One's on the plan and one's on the construction. I'm sorry, I haven't been to any meetings before. And thanks to everybody who participated in this. This is great. I live on Locust Street, and left turns coming north on Shelburne Road. I've already seen one rear end happen, and I almost got T-boned once by a guy going in the wrong lane coming north on Shelburne Road, so that was pretty scary. But my main concern looking at this project now is that if you come out of Locust Street and you're trying to go south on Shelburne Road, especially in in cases of heavy traffic on Locust Street, which are, when the school's coming in or leaving, morning and afternoon, and maybe once the Southern Connector is built, there could be even more traffic. People coming off the Southern Connector wanting to get back on Shelburne Road. We'll have to see about that. But anyway, what happens is people coming up Locust Street, especially from the school, want to get onto Ledge Road. And it's not clear to me what the intent is on this plan, because what happens now is that people coming up that street trying to get onto Ledge Road just stop there until there's a free space to turn left onto Ledge Road, right? And I see here, it seems to me from the drawing that you've got two spaces now to turn left onto Ledge Road, which is an improvement, but it's not clear to me whether you intend for these people to come into the rotary and just go round and round the rotary until there's spaces for them to turn left. Did you consider allowing traffic to turn right onto Shelburne Road? It's confusing to me what's happening there. Maybe you can explain it. Because I'm frequently caught behind, 3 or 4 cars that are all trying to go up on Ledge Road, and nothing happens because they can't turn left. right? And so traffic is stopped coming up Locust Street. So maybe, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So when you're exiting the roundabout to go down Shelburne Street South, there's the exit's going to be wide enough for 2 cars. So the car, if you were going to go down Shelburne Street, you would stay to the right side, and then there'll be a striped pavement marking left turn bay for the folks that are trying to turn left onto Ledge Road. So there's
Okay, so it isn't clear. That's good. It's not clear from this drawing because you've got like a green space. I couldn't tell if it was greenway or what is it. But what you're saying now is that there's going to be actually 2 lanes coming east on Locust Street to join at the Rotary. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
One lane that you can just turn right onto Shelburne Road, and another one for entering the Rotary and turning left?
So there's only 1 lane that enters the roundabout in all directions, and including Locust Street. So if you're on Locust Street, you would take a right. If you wanted to go left on the immediate left onto Ledge Road, you would stay to the left after you made your right-hand turn, and take the left turn that way. The left turn bay is to allow folks that are trying to travel south to go around and not back into the roundabout.
But you haven't answered my question really, and that is, let's say there's 3 cars all trying to go up Ledge Road, which is frequent here, and there's a 4th car that just wants to get into the Rotary, or even simply just wants to turn right and go south on Shelburne Road. Are you intending that the cars to turn left on Ledge Road, because there's no more spaces, are just going to go round and round the Rotary? That you want them to enter the Rotary there and proceed with the rest of the traffic, or are they stuck there and is everybody stuck behind them until they find a space? And furthermore, if those 2 spaces are filled and there's other traffic coming north on Shelburne Road, which is frequent in the morning, right? Shelburne Road's going to be like a constant procession of traffic. And so those people aren't going to be able to get into the Rotary because the people in Ledge Road are waiting and they can't turn left. Hopefully they're not going to be blocking the intersection, right, for those people turn. So I'm bringing up all these points. Might be too late, but I guess what I'm asking is, could there be a right turn lane there? Or is that just contra indicated by the whole design?
Yeah, so we're beyond the point of design. We're at the point of construction at this point, and so we're not making any more changes to the design. We have modeled the traffic in that area, and we took into consideration the traffic northbound on Shelburne Road and the traffic that turns left onto Ledge Road, and found that while the space to turn left, we would have liked it to have been longer, but the existing streets are where they're at. And so we had to make do with the spaces as much as we possibly can. So for folks that are turning right into the roundabout from Locust Street, we would ask that they exercise a little judgment. And if their intent is to make a left onto Ledge Road and they see the bay full, we would ask they would probably not enter the roundabout or seek another route until that bay opens. Now,
So
part of the solution is that we have the don't block the box for northbound Shelburne Street traffic. And I know a lot of people don't always abide by that. Sometimes they stop in the blocks and they're not supposed to. That then becomes an enforcement issue. But that box is to kind of help remind northbound travelers that if you see somebody turning left and traffic in front of you has not yet entered the roundabout, to leave a gap and try to let those left turners in. So we're trying to encourage folks to.
Okay, so I think, just let me restate, the answer to my question is, you don't want those people turning left onto Ledge Road to enter the Rotary if there's no available spaces there for them to wait. You want them just to wait there at the stop sign until there are spaces for them to turn left onto Ledge Road. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's not necessarily the best solution, but it's a better solution than having them trying to circulate in the roundabout and then blocking up the roundabout.
Okay, it's no
because
worse
they
than
can't-
we have now, so I admit that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second question does pertain to construction. I live at the corner of Caroline and Locust. And I'm assuming, although maybe tell me I'm wrong, that there's going to be some staging in all, of equipment, because there's a big space to park right across from my house, right at the park there. And you guys are going to have a lot of equipment to stage. So you mentioned earlier in the presentation that the construction was going to be from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. or even later, depending. So what I'm asking is, can we at least make it very clear to the construction people that they shouldn't start backing trucks up and beeping at 6:30 a.m. when all the construction people arrive? That 7 a.m. really means 7 a.m. and that's when the noise should start. That's what I'm asking. Is that your opinion and your understanding? That 7 a.m. is when construction noise starts? Except when you're working all night, of course.
I'll have Matt Wheeler talk a little bit about this and what their intentions are. I will say, before he speaks, I will say, contractually speaking, the contractor is legally allowed to work before 7 o'clock. They can work as early as 6 a.m. However, we are aware that this is a residential neighborhood, and the contractor has already stated that they're aware that folks don't want to be disturbed at 7 a.m. or, before 7 a.m. if possible. I don't think that any of us could say here that tonight that, we're absolutely going to wait until 7 o'clock and then start up. I mean, sometimes things have to start a little bit earlier, but we are mindful of that. And the contractor, Matt and SD Ireland are aware and are sensitive to folks living in the area. Matt, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, we want to be good neighbors too. We don't want to wake people up. We don't want to be extra noisy before 7. So, we'll tell our crews, if they're in the middle of the intersection or something, that's one thing. But as far as a staging area near residential properties, if we're close to a house, we're gonna try to be as less noisy as possible. And I don't think we're gonna stage too much on Locust Street. Maybe just pipe and catch basins, but we haven't worked through those details yet.
Okay, thanks. Just one more short suggestion. If you do close off, you said you were gonna, there'd be times when traffic was gonna be very restricted at the top of Locust Street. Obviously, people are gonna divert and they're gonna go down to Pine Street, to try to get where they're going. So the suggestion is you might wanna do something at that intersection of Locust and Pine to allow people to turn, left. Now, right now, it's pretty difficult to turn left, especially with traffic coming into the city in the morning. There's no signal there. So, just an observation.
Thank you.
We have one more in-room question, and then maybe we can go to the Q&A.
Sure. I have several, but I'll try to be brief. My name is Dr. Craig Dwyer. I'm the principal of Christ the King School, which is in the epicenter of the whole construction project. And I know this is complex and everyone's inconvenienced by construction, so there's not going to be a solution that's probably can be noiseless or seamless. So the school operates with 200 students currently enrolled. So to be proactive, I already reached out to the parents and provided the videos that were online to the 200 parents. And to be proactive, I'm going to have staggered drop-off so all 200 parents don't come at once during this construction. Have them in stages of 50 coming at a time to drop off their children. You mentioned in the presentation about utilities and the possible shut-off, which is going to be apparent with all the work. And whether it's electric or water, I know you said 48 or 72-hour notice. It's going to obviously impact the school building because school can't be in session without electric and water. Do we know if the electric and water to the school building comes from Shelburne Road or comes up from Pine? And if so, is that a standard to give me 48-hour notice? Because I have to inform 200 people of this and staff that the school has to be closed. So it's going to impact this 504 nonprofit, 504C nonprofit. I guess my concern is long-term, parents, if this is, I don't know if there's going to be, again, temporary stoplights, like at the end of Pine and Locust, a stoplight placed there potentially, or crossing guards, or how the traffic is going to flow. Because it's not a public school, so people choose to be there. And if this is a huge inconvenience, they can choose not to be there. So it's a concern as a school that sort of operates as a business in a sense. It's a unique circumstance to be in. But in terms of shutting off utilities to a school, is there a way that I can know more than 48 hours, if it's an extended period of time, or if it happens by accident, how will we be informed of that? Is someone going to call the school, or they have a specific contact person at the school? Let's say something happens during the school day that the water has to be shut off, it's an emergency. How will we be notified?
Yeah, those are good questions, Dr. Dwyer. I think, we'll do what we possibly can to give the school as much notice as possible. If we know, if there are planned outages, we want to give everybody as much notice as possible. And for you especially, it does have a big impact in closing of school. Obviously, you would want to know ahead of time. We'll work with Matt and his team and try to, and also BED as well, especially for the electricity, to give you guys as much lead time as possible. As you mentioned, things do happen during construction. Sometimes accidents happen, or a water line gets broke or whatever, and you have to deal with those situations as they arise. But I would argue that those could happen even if there wasn't construction. I mean, it happens in the wintertime in the city of Burlington where a water line breaks. So, we're hopeful that we don't run into any sort of accidents like that or unforeseen shutoffs, but we'll do everything we possibly can to get you guys as much notice. I don't know if Laura or Matt want to chime in a little bit on that.
I do know where your water line is, and we can talk about that offline.
Okay.
I don't think you're as affected as you think that you are concerned about, so that's helpful, but it does answer, or could answer, questions from other people who have a similar concern. So I think that hearing from Matt would be helpful.
And then I guess I have a follow-up with, I know we have eminent domain has taken possession of our field at the top of our property where children play. So I guess directing them to Callahan Park during recess would be best. Is it possible to have a temporary crosswalk from the driveway of the school across Locust so the students can cross to get to Callahan, since they can't use the upper lot because that's going to be taken away for the Rotary and will be a construction site for 2 years?
I think a crosswalk was just constructed at Caroline, right? Or yeah, Caroline Street.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah, I know it's a block away and doesn't sound like a big issue, but for 3-year-olds, that's a long walk. So maybe, I don't know who I can get in contact with to have something temporarily, just straight across the street.
It's probably a conversation we should have offline.
Okay.
Ireland has requested some use of the park across from Christ the King, so having children walk in front of their staging area may not actually be as ideal as what it looks like today. But as Matt said, that is also still up under review and for discussion. So it can be something that Josh and Kara, who are here in the room, are coordinating that with SD Ireland. I'm with DPW, and as odd as it sounds, I have no control over what Parks lets them use. But I do know those conversations are happening as it relates to the crosswalk. DPW would work with V-Trans if that's ultimately a solution that can be permitted. And that's actually also not my call. It belongs to the DPW commission. Do have a commissioner behind you though, if you wanted to chat offline as well.
A lot of people to chat.
I just want to say that seeing the rope together 3-year-olds cross Caroline Street in the morning is like a high point of my day. So, you're taking that away from me.
So I'm gonna mute us for a little bit unless you want one of us to answer, but let Delia maybe go through some of the questions if that works.
Sure. And Mike, I did get the questions from Laura. She sent them over, so I'm happy to filter them through to you so you don't have to scroll through.
Thank you.
The first question is, what is the cost of this project?
So the cost of the project, SD Ireland has bid a convenient amount of money of $7,777,777. I think they were hoping for some good luck on this project. That's what the bidded amount was. That's a public figure. The costs, that's what we're shooting for. So obviously things happen during construction, and sometimes we need to overrun on a few things, but generally we're looking at the high sevens, low $8 million.
Great. And we touched upon this a bit, but will the project go dormant over the winter months? And to add to that, if so, what time period might that cover?
So we think, generally speaking, there won't be much winter work. Now, that's not to say that there won't be, but if there is, it would be, I think, winter season is December 15th. Well, technically it's October 15th through April 15th, but December 15th is like really when we shut everything down. But there could be some winter activities. We're hoping we try to minimize those.
Are there any contingencies for adding a second lane if it is discovered to be bottleneck with the narrowing to one lane heading north on Shelburne Road, which currently is very minimal?
So back in the scoping phase of this project, the city had requested that as part of the single lane roundabout alternative, that design included extra space. So if for some reason traffic got really crazy in 20, 25 years, that they could come in and easily add a second lane northbound. So we've built that space in case it ever needed to get put back. We don't anticipate that happening. Single lane roundabouts can easily handle the traffic that we've measured out there. And in fact, over the last 5-6 years, the traffic out there has been slowly declining. So we're keeping an eye on the traffic levels there, plus also the Champlain Parkway, when that gets constructed, will have some sort of impact to traffic on Shelburne Street. What that is, we don't know. It's really hard to predict whether it's going to increase volumes or decrease, but the traffic volumes are likely to change one way or another. So.
All right, thank you. And what situations would be considered special situations that would allow work to happen on a Saturday?
That's a good question. I don't know if Josh or Matt, I don't know if sometimes things come up during the week that we can't address, like late on a Friday night or something. I don't know. Matt, do you have any?
Yeah, I can handle that one. Special instances where, say, we don't get to finish a sewer main and we have to connect something in, at least within 24, 48 hours, we'll work, but typically the guys don't work past noon, 1 o'clock on Saturdays. Or emergency situations where, say, we had a unknown water line that we unfortunately found and we have to work through the night or something to repair that. Those are two instances that I can think of.
Thank you, Matt. We have someone who's put in a question. that represents a property owner trying to schedule a 6-inch water main upgrade to 111 Shelburne Street. And they're wondering who the best contact person is, whether that's SD Ireland for scheduling.
Yeah, they can call SB Ireland's main office and ask for myself, Matt Wheeler, or Brian Meir, and we can discuss that.
Thank you. Another question, will Shelburne Street still have 4 lanes for cars?
Shelburne Street south of Adams Court will still be 4 lanes. North of that, the southbound traffic will have 2 lanes to Gove Court, and then the northbound will be merging to 2 lanes into 1 from Adams Court to the entrance to the roundabout.
Thank you. Someone noted that it looks like coming off Ledge Road, the angle to get fully into the roundabout looks sharper than most, making it more difficult to safely enter the traffic flow. Is that the case?
No, we've analyzed car tracking and turning movements. So the curbs have been designed to accommodate vehicles making predictable movements.
Great. Will there be blasting work through the hard rock that will be encountered? And how will people in the area be notified if there will be utility shutoff? Sorry, kind of combined 2 in 1 there.
Yes, we talked most about this in the presentation. Blasting is certainly possible. Obviously, being in a residential neighborhood, we're trying to minimize that, but it could very well be inevitable. And then, if you're concerned, feel free to sign up for our updates. If you fall within that 1,000-foot radius, please provide us your contact information so that we can reach out to you. But that's why we brought WSP on board, to provide public outreach so that we can cover all the channels and try to get as much information out to adjacent property owners and the traveling public as soon as possible.
Yes, and anyone on this call who wants to join the email list, please feel free to submit your email in a question. We will add it to the distribution list. Another question, has consideration been given to integrating into this plan 1 or more permanent underground crosswalks to enhance traffic flow and pedestrian safety?
Underground crosswalks?
Yes.
I'm assuming that would be like a pedestrian tunnel of sorts. Consideration was not given in this case due to the presence of ledge and just the buried utility infrastructure under there. It would just be too costly and too invasive to construct such a structure at this particular location.
How do you see accessing and exiting Gove Court being affected with the new restricted lane patterns?
So Gove Court will be open to the extent possible. During work on Gove Court for the installation of a water line and a sewer line, there may be some closure or at least some one-way alternating traffic for folks. We know it's a dead-end street and folks only have one way out. So again, we'll try to make folks notified as much as possible, especially with their driveways as well. So we're going to have to temporarily block off a driveway while we're installing that utility infrastructure. So please sign up for updates and we'll be reaching out for sure.
So this next question might be a little too specific, but we'll see. Will there be a left-hand turn into 96 Shelburne if a driver is headed south, or is there a median that would block direct access?
I don't know where 96 Shelburne Street is.
That is the first property south of the condos where the Rotary Golf was.
Okay. Let me bring up a plan here and just see. Right, so there will be no restrictions to entering or exiting that driveway. The raised island is actually north of that, so the residents at that location will be able to enter and exit left and right, just as they do today.
And in relation to the same property, while you have that up,
Uh-huh.
will any of the permanent updates be removing and or moving onto that property?
So the road is the street is actually going to be pulled away from the property at that location, because we're going to be down to one lane northbound in front of that house, and then also we will be constructing a shared use path that will be replacing the sidewalk in front of that property as well, and the properties on either side of it as well. So um, traffic will actually be further away from the house than it is today.
Okay. And then what does the roadway and shared use path include? Pedestrians and bikes?
The shared use path is meant to accommodate both pedestrians and bicyclists who don't feel comfortable riding in the street or are uncomfortable taking biking through a roundabout. There'll be a bike ramp that will allow those folks to bike off the road and navigate the intersection via that facility. And then there'll be bike ramps on the other side to let them enter back into the street if that's the method that they choose. Believe they can also ride on the sidewalk in Burlington. I don't think that's against the ordinance. But for folks that are on the street, this is an alternative for them.
And could you please explain the configuration of the sidewalk at the south leg of the roundabout on the east side? I'm confused about the route of the sidewalks and what look like islands.
So I'm guessing this is probably in the vicinity of where Ledge Road comes in. So the shared use path will approach the Ledge Road intersection, and there'll be a crosswalk. And then there's an island, and you can kind of see it in red if you're looking at the plan that we were showing earlier. That's a refuge island, so that folks can only have to cross one lane at a time. And it makes them more visible to drivers. And then once they get to that refuge island, they can cross a second single lane to get to the other side of the road.
Okay, I think we answered this question in the presentation, but maybe just to reiterate, if anyone joined us late, how much advance warning on any blasting?
That varies. You know, obviously, if we know we're going to be blasting in advance, or we'll try to make that as much as possible. I don't. Maybe Matt can chime in terms of specifics. I don't know what he's providing for advance warning, but I know at the actual blast there are certain time intervals leading up to the blast, and there's got to be certain whistles and whatnot at certain intervals. I think it's either like at 5 minutes and 10 minutes or something. But in terms of the days, I think that's where maybe Matt can chime in a little bit.
Yeah, so if we do have to blast, which I expect we will have to, the blasts are protected by blast mats to prevent flying debris. They're going to be low frequency, low vibration blasts because we're going to be blasting in a tight area near utilities, so we can't blow up existing utilities as well. And then when prior to blasting, what we do, we have spotters, and they fan out along the sidewalks and roadways, and we block any pedestrians from getting into the area well in advance. It's typically 15 minutes before the blast. And then we also do rolling roadblocks, so that basically we kind of we don't stop traffic, but we slow traffic down to give us that 5-minute window to blast. So we utilize typical procedures for everybody's safety and make sure that we don't have any problems there.
And just to add to that, we were actually going to have a separate blasting presentation before the first activities involving blasting. And we're going to we'll invite the property owners nearby and the public as well. But this is more, it'll be more specific. The topic is more specific and focused on blasting and ledge removal. So there'll be a second one of these type of presentations sometime over the summer, I would imagine.
Mike, just a housekeeping thing. Someone asked if we could display the proposed design on the screen again while we go through Q&A. It might be helpful. There we go. Thank you.
Sure.
Another question. There are several small and 2 very large trees on the east side of Shelburne Street. Will they remain or be removed?
East side. I wish there was a little more specificity to that question. There are some trees that will have to be removed, but we will be replacing trees. And we have a whole landscaping plan that's been blessed by the city arborist, and you know, so we have some native trees and trees that the city likes to use, disease-resistant trees. So if there are any trees, we generally will be replacing them to the best of our ability.
Thank you. What would the longest time utilities be shut off? We have someone who's concerned they have tenants and they're concerned they might have to compensate for the inconvenience over 2 years.
Well, it's really going to depend on the activity. We want to obviously try to keep the shutoffs as short as possible, but it's really going to depend on the utility that is being disrupted, and that could be almost any length of time. It could be a couple minutes, it could be many hours, but you know, we'll obviously try to, you know, I would think that we would try to estimate that if we can. It's not always possible, but folks like BED and you know, the water department, they, you know, they're in tune with usual, you know, they have rough ideas of how long a disruption needs to occur. But I don't think we can necessarily say for sure right here, right now, how long any particular disruption is going to be. It's going to depend on the work involved and how smooth it goes or how rough it goes. So that's why we're trying to encourage folks to sign up and so that we can try to get as much information to them as possible.
And in terms of utilities that may be impacted, someone asks which utilities, would it just be electric, water?
All utilities. If I'm standing here, I'm telling you that it will involve every utility. And you know, again, depending on the location of the utility is going to determine, you know, again, the duration and the level of disruption. So expect, everybody should expect that all their utilities should be disrupted at some point in time for some length of duration.
Great. We have a question about navigating the roundabout. Once you are in the roundabout, do you have the right of way?
Once you are in the roundabout, you have the right of way. You do not stop once you're in the roundabout. If there's an emergency vehicle that comes up behind you in the roundabout, keep circling until you find your exit and then pull over to let the emergency vehicle through. We have we have produced a couple videos for this project. If you go to our project website, you'll see a project specific video. And we also have a how to navigate the roundabout video that's extremely helpful, and it should answer almost all the questions that you have about navigating a single lane roundabout.
Thank you. Do you anticipate sidewalk and or street closures on Ledge Road or Locust Street? If so, signs a day or two before those streets closures would be helpful, and notices at least a day or two before on Front Porch Forum in Burlington. Thank you.
We expect sidewalk closures on all streets at some point in time. If you sign up for our weekly update, construction updates, those closures or the anticipated closures of sidewalks and streets would be in those weekly updates.
Okay. What are the pink ribbons on the trees, and will those be removed as part of the project? We received a couple questions about that. I'm not sure if you know, Mike, maybe Laura knows.
I'm not sure what pink ribbons they are. That's a good question. Laura, do you know?
The consensus in the room is we're not actually sure.
Okay. We got a couple questions, so.
I
Yeah.
don't believe they are related to this project. Could be wrong, but I don't think they are.
It could have been our SDR and supervisor marking some trees to get estimates for removal, but
Okay.
again, I'm not 100% sure if it was or not.
Thank you. I'm concerned about commuters opting to take alternate routes through surrounding residential neighborhoods. Some of these neighborhoods have no sidewalks, putting pedestrians and bicycles at risk from the increased traffic. Is there a plan to deal with this issue?
I'm gonna have Laura answer that.
Thanks, Mike. Mike touched on it a little bit in the presentation. The traffic control plan for this project is essentially restrictive to the contractor, that there is significant flow that is still required to be able to be handled throughout the project's construction. This was done with a lot of care and analysis to ensure that the volumes of traffic that occur during the day, whether it's commute hours or middle of the day, are satisfied. This has been reviewed by the city of Burlington and many, many other people besides myself. As it relates to neighborhoods, the routes that are identified as detours are well ahead of the project, and not a lot of the smaller neighborhood entrances do we anticipate will be burdened throughout the project. In addition, at the start of this project, the Pine Street corridor has no immediate construction occurring. So as this project gets going, as commuters start picking their new routes, it is an open north-south corridor.
Thank you, Laura. We have a couple questions related to driveway access. People just asking if their driveway, if they will be able to access their driveway throughout construction, during construction as well as utility work.
Generally, yes. If for some reason the work is occurring right in front of somebody's driveway, Matt and his team will be sure to reach out with as much notice as they possibly can. We also understand that some folks park on the streets where it's allowed. So we're mindful of that as well. But we want to try to keep access open as much as we possibly can. So any sort of closures of access would be as short as we possibly can manage.
Related to street parking, someone asked if the parking at the corner of Shelburne and Locust will be impacted. They have a 5-family house that relies on street parking for tenants.
Yes. So on-street parking on Locust would be impacted. And I believe, we'll work with Matt and his team and Laura at DPW to on the parking situation, getting folks properly notified with as much notice as possible. It could be that we need to find alternate parking spots for folks in the interim. But if, you know, we want to try to keep parking as open as much as we possibly can, particularly at night. But during the day when there's construction equipment or whatever, and we don't want to be that close to parked cars, then we would probably reach out to have them relocated.
We have a, oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
if I can just add, you know, the image that's displayed does still show that on-street parking, maybe not in that exact location as it's a little too close to the intersection, but on-street parking will be restored up to the limits that are allowed with the new intersection configuration.
Yes.
We do have a comment. Someone is suggesting temporary signals at the Howard and Pine Street and the Briarcliff Parkway and Pine intersections. So just wanted to share that. And I'm looking through, I don't see many more questions here. If anyone, I noticed someone did have their hand raised at one point, perhaps the question was answered. But if anyone is raising their hands, I'm watching and we can unmute you if you're raising your hand virtually, or Laura, if there's any questions in the room. Oh, I have Amanda. Mike, would you be able to unmute Amanda, who's raising her hand to ask a question?
Yes. Hi, Amanda.
Hey, I spoke to you in one of the MPA meetings. So I just want to get a sense of, so, right, are we saying that I'm at that house that's right in front of the roundabout at Shelburne? It's the 5-family. And we are concerned that right now we have parking restrictions on the other side of the street, and for obvious reasons, because there's a school there that needs traffic to be able to flow easily for drop off. But we're also losing, there are no parking spaces up here once we lose what we will lose to the roundabout. So is there going to be any accommodation? I can't tell because I'm not looking at it before and after. So are there going to be accommodations made on allowing parking throughout the day, at least on part of the other side of the street on Locust, or is that not happening?
You can take that one, Mike, if you want.
Yeah, okay.
We have not reviewed any regulatory changes that would be made to the parking conditions around the roundabout at this point in time. This is an intersection safety project, and that's really been the primary focus. We do want to wait till we get a little bit further into construction to understand if there's any changes that are found for the unknowns in the street that result in changes to the overall design before we go to the point of asking the DPW Commission to ratify the parking regulatory changes that would be with the intersection. So it's still forthcoming. Your concern is solidly noted about the change. It is a conversation that we would have at the neighborhood level to make such a change to the regulatory parking, regulated parking.
I think you guys are doing a great job. And I said before, I've seen a number of accidents out there. So I know that this is necessary and important. But at the same time, I do wish, I know that this is at the state level. And so when you have a state traffic project with federal money, that we're talking about a whole different ballgame for how things get set up. But I do wish that there had been more local level conversations. I've been here for 5 years. And I don't feel like we've ever been reached out to. And we are going to be considerably impacted. It's going to be hard to get roommates now, given this level of construction. I wish that people had reached out to us for a little bit more input, not necessarily to become a problem, but to think about some of these issues. I told you before, I really wish that you would consider in advance of this project, changing those pathways to mark them, to differentiate between where bicyclists should be and where the little guys of Christ the King might be walking. That I don't want to wait till there's an accident for that to happen.
Amanda, did you provide your contact information so that as we do reach out later on to work through the parking we have a way of getting in touch with you?
I emailed. I don't know if that suffices. Is there another place that I should be sending my contact info to?
To the info@Shelburne Street Roundabout.
Yeah, I sent my email over there. I'll send another one just with better contact info. Thank you, guys.
Amanda, we did
Thank-
receive your email address, so we have that,
Okay.
but any additional information is helpful.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
And
Thank you.
I have a question here that I overlooked before, so I apologize. How far up South Willard Street will utility work go? And if we have specific addresses, that's what's asked for if possible.
Up South Willard Street.
Yes.
South Willard Street work on both the road and the underground utilities will end at Chittenden Drive. So I believe we're replacing 2 water lines in that location. I think there's one house, possibly. I know there's a driveway there. But generally speaking, we're not directly impacting the services to the houses beyond Chittenden Drive. That doesn't mean there won't be shutoffs, but direct impacts we're not anticipating.
Thank you. And I have one more online question that we'll take. And then I don't know if Laura has any just to wrap up because I know we're heading over time here. Is there a planting plan available to view online? Can we assume that all the bright green areas of the plan represent curbed grass areas?
So yeah, what you see on the plan is green is grassed area. We're replacing the grass strips between the streets, curved streets and the sidewalks. You can kind of see these symbols here for where we expect trees. This isn't everything. We have a detailed plan. I'm trying to think if that's public or not. If it isn't, I think we could probably post something. We might be able to post something on our website. I'll have to take a look at that.
And Laura, I see your hand is raised. I don't know if there's any other questions to wrap up.
We do have a few more in-room questions. I think Solveig, yep.
I wanted to just do 2 things, make a comment. Some of the questions, I'm on the Public Works Commission in Burlington. Some of the comments and concerns are clearly related to not being familiar with the way roundabouts work. And I'm hoping that you'll see that they actually will work better. And there's 2 factors that are not obvious. The first one is that roundabouts slow the traffic down to the point where there's an interaction between the pedestrian separate and in advance of having the car trying to get into the roundabout, and also with other vehicles. So there's a different dynamic relationally to make these to make the intersection a different experience. And that's not something you'll know until you've had that experience. The second thing I want to point out is that the placement of the crosswalks exactly makes it possible for the vehicles to deal with pedestrians and bicyclists before they're trying to negotiate their own entrance with other vehicles. 2 factors that are not always obvious to people. And my question really related to, is there the traffic management plan, does that extend to the issues that have been addressed in questions about Pine Street traffic? Did that traffic management, is anything being planned? I know those were concerns, and that was one of my questions. Has anything was it part of the plan, how to handle that clearly anticipated extra load, however you maybe thought of it?
So, yes, we did look at traffic as it relates to Pine Street in terms of whether or not the roundabout during construction can handle that extra traffic, and it does. The site will have the capacity to handle an influx of traffic from Pine Street in the event that there was work or something happening down there. Long term, as I spoke earlier, it's a little hard to predict exactly what traffic is going to do once the parkway is built. So we couldn't predict that. So long term, we did not take into consideration any sort of traffic from a future Champlain Parkway. But during construction, the site can handle it.
construction, not,
Yep.
on.
Mike, I think the question is more about as the traffic is detoured for the construction activities, because of some one-way directionals that occur, how was that detoured, or redirected traffic considered?
It was studied. We had identified some detours, potential detours, and we think we might utilize the same detours during construction. And we looked at alternate or adjacent intersections such as Howard Street and St. Paul, the signal there, and a couple other key intersections in the surrounding area to make sure that there wouldn't be some disaster at those locations. And again, it's construction, so we have to all expect that there's going to be some level of disruption, even outside of the work zone itself. So, which is why we're trying to get out now, try to cover the whole city and even parts of South Burlington. We want to make sure that folks traveling up and down the corridor, Route 7 corridor, know that this has tentacles. This impacts to traffic, and all forms of transportation will be impacted.
Any other follow-up?
I think that addressed my question, other than I think there might be a need to have just somebody at the bottom of those streets for people to be able to get in and out. So you almost need traffic control people that will be, helping people at those intersections, because the traffic will all go up Pine Street or down Pine Street. And that's what you sort of want to keep it away from construction. So I think that'd be something that I would propose to the public.
Yep,
works
well, you have
department.
the construction inspectors that you're talking to right now, so they will.
I think that's something that, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
You had an additional question?
I just was curious, with this diagram, the tan colored plots in there are homes and some businesses. Is there any significance to them? Are they people that you've reached out to individually? And then if so, then why people on Ledge Road aren't shown there? Also, Christ the King is not also in tan, where they cover land. Is it just a diagram that is not significant between the tan plots and the non-tan homes?
There's no significance. It's this is just a diagrammatic, just to kind of give folks a sense of orientation and a visualization that they can focus on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And is the signage going to be really good so people can know? Because half the problem is that people don't look at the rotary turnabout, which way to go.
Are you asking in its final condition or throughout the construction phases?
Both. Well, we can get through the first two
Touche.
first. Through the construction. I think we want a lot of signs, probably.
So during construction, signage is going to be absolutely crucial, and we're going to have a very detailed traffic control plan that's going to lay out where signs are, what the type of signs are, spacing of them, and the fact that there's going to be changing traffic patterns throughout construction is going to make the placement of the types of signs and the placement of those signs crucial. So we have somebody constantly monitoring that. It'll be part of the contractor's plan that they'll be submitting for approval. Both the state and the city will have approval authority on that. And in terms of the future condition, our roundabout signage, warning signage is typical. It will meet all federal standards. It will be generally in line with signage that you find at other roundabouts in Vermont. There being a city, things are a lot tighter. So you might see, the trick is to sign appropriately without over-signing, because we don't really want to overexpose folks and try to send folks too much information on approach to a roundabout. So it's a balancing act that we have to perform during the design. And I feel pretty confident in the design that we have for signage for this project.
Thank you.
Just to add on to that, one of the things that the city council actually did when they adopted this concept back in 2009 is tasked DPW with a proper rollout and a follow-up study for the roundabout. And so we've actually already engaged the Regional Planning Commission to help come up with a plan how to allow the roundabout to open with good outreach so that it will be as successful as possible. So that is something that we are already working on. It'll probably take us to 2 years, so we're glad to have the time. Any other interim questions? All right, I'm gonna mute myself.
And we have no more questions virtually right now and no hands raised.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate the opportunity to reach out to you. Please check out our website, sign up for updates and outreach. It'll be crucial for you all for the next couple of years, and it'll be helpful for us as well. So we look forward to implementing this successful safety project. Thank you.